heart of medieval Rome, beneath the shadow of the Lateran Basilica, a scene unfolded that defied belief. It was the year 897 AD. The city was a place of crumbling empires, corrupt politics, and broken saints. The Eternal City, home to Caesars and saints, was now ruled by chaos. And at the center of that chaos stood a dead man. He had already been buried, he had already been mourned, but now he was being judged. Dug up from his tomb, dressed in sacred papal vestments, and propped on a throne before a crowd of horrified spectators. Pope Formosus was being put on trial. He was no longer alive, but that wouldn't stop the church. This is the story of the Cadaver Synod, a grotesque collision of religion, vengeance, and madness. A trial that would leave a stain on the Catholic Church's legacy that not even time could erase. Pope Formosus wasn't always a corpse, of course. He was born around the year 816. A brilliant speaker, a respected bishop, a diplomat who had traveled far and wide, sent to Bulgaria, the Holy Roman Empire, and Constantinople. He wasn't a saint, but he was clever. And in a time when the papacy was less about piety and more about power, cleverness was survival. In 891, after years of Roman instability, Formosus became pope. But almost immediately he was caught in a brutal game of thrones. Two factions, two empires fought for the soul of Rome. On one side, the powerful Spolitan dynasty, Roman-born aristocrats with military might and deep influence. On the other, Arnulf of Carinthia, a German king who claimed the imperial crown of the Holy Roman Empire. Formosus made a dangerous choice. He sided with Arnulf, and for that, he earned enemies who would not forget. Formosus died in 896. No foul play, no scandal, he was simply gone. And for most, that should have been the end of the story, but not for Pope Stephen VI. Stephen had risen quickly, installed by the Spolitans. He owed his papacy to the very people Formosus had betrayed. And Stephen, angry, vengeful, perhaps even mad, wanted more than to erase Formosus's name. He wanted to desecrate it, to destroy it. So in the summer of 897, Stephen ordered Formosus's corpse exhumed. 9 months after burial, the body was dragged from its crypt, rotten, discolored, rigid from decay. It was cleaned, dressed in sacred robes, and propped up on a throne in the Basilica of St. John Lateran. The trial was about to begin. The courtroom was filled with clergy, cardinals, bishops, monks, all summoned by Stephen under threat or bribe to witness what history would remember as one of the most macabre spectacles ever committed by the Church. The charges were surreal: that Formosus had violated canon law by becoming pope after being the bishop of another diocese, that he had perjured himself, that his rise to power had been illegitimate. But how do you try a dead man? Stephen had a solution. He appointed a deacon as defense attorney, a terrified young cleric whose role was little more than ritual. As the trial commenced, Stephen screamed at the corpse. Eyewitnesses say he became unhinged, ranting and raving, pacing the courtroom, shouting accusations at the lifeless body. Formosus, of course, said nothing. The trial concluded quickly. The outcome had been decided long before the body had even left the grave. Pope Formosus was found guilty on all charges. Stephen rose from his throne and delivered sentence. The papacy of Formosus was declared invalid. His every act as pope, every ordination, every blessing was nullified. His body would be stripped of its vestments, and his blessing fingers, the right hand fingers used for the sign of the cross, would be severed. Then, in front of the horrified audience, guards cut the corpse's hand. The robes were torn away, and Formosus, now a posthumous heretic, was discarded like refuse. His body was thrown into a pauper's grave. But even that wasn't enough. Days later, Stephen had the grave dug up again. Formosus was thrown into the Tiber River. But Rome had seen enough. The people were appalled. Even in an age of violence and corruption, what Stephen had done was too far. Desecrating the dead wasn't just blasphemy, it was insanity. When Formosus's body washed ashore, rumors spread like wildfire that God himself had rejected the desecration, that the river refused to accept the injustice. Whispers grew into protests. Protests became mobs. Pope Stephen VI was arrested, imprisoned in the very dungeons he had sent others to, and not long after, he was found strangled in his cell. Some say it was suicide, others are not so sure. Over the next few years, the Church attempted to clean its wounds. Formosus's body was recovered once more, this time by monks who reburied him quietly and with respect. Later, popes officially annulled the Cadaver Synod. They restored Formosus's honor and reinstated his acts as legitimate. But the shadow remained. What happened at the Cadaver Synod couldn't be erased from history, and it couldn't be forgotten. Because it wasn't just a bizarre episode, it was a warning of how vengeance can corrupt the sacred, of how power can devour reason, and of how even the dead can be pulled into the madness of the living.